and thank you for joining me today on Loyal World Info. Another day of the global spinning, another day of global news to digest. I offer a sane, rational voice for an insane, rational time. I will be your host, but first, let me share a little bit about me. I look forward to waking up to the international news like a child opening a Christmas present. I never know how I will act or activities I will do until after I unwrap my present. In the news case, what will I learn? What will it cause me to think about? What will I reflect back on? And what will I share with others? Stay with me and let's open presents together. Now, let's get into today's topics. Today is April 10th, 2020. Now let's get on with the topics of the day. Our first topic is screen addiction. After that, we will move down to lockdown and overeating, the end of visa-free traveler status, North Korea recruits hostesses for tourists, endangered pet returns home, crazy prosecutions for breaking social distancing laws, words matter, sometimes have consequences, Vietnam loses a son, stay in touch and navigate the system. Moving on to our first article of the day, and that is a parent fears online classes could fuel screen addiction. This takes place in South Korea. But as you know, many countries are resorting to online or TV classes as they've closed the schools due to the virus or bug outbreak. So let's read this story, then afterwards I will give my thoughts on the input. So many parents are fretting about online classes that are supposed to make up for offline teaching because it means their children will be spending even more time glued to their screens. A 37-year-old mother of an elementary school child said, "I don't even let my child watch TV until now, but my efforts are going to be wasted due to online classes." A message the mother received from her child's teacher a few days ago invited the student to conduct their role on a Kakao app. One 43-year-old office worker had been refusing president's pleads by her son in the 7th grade to buy him a smartphone, hoping to wait until he was able to use one responsibly. "But I'll have to either buy him one or let him borrow one now," she said. "I'm afraid he might grow too addicted to YouTube or computer games." The biggest concern is excessive dependency on smart devices. A government study in February showed that 22% of children aged 3 to 9 and 30% of students aged 10 to 19 were at risk of excessive dependency on smartphones. That means they have either lost their ability to control their use or suffer from addiction that causes problems in their daily life. Parados John Hoon said, "If we are exposing the stimulating content from childhood, we lose interest in daily life and seek more online stimulus. It's best not to expose children to smart devices, at least until they finish elementary school." Personally, I would say they should finish at least middle school on top of that. Exposures to sexually explicit content are also online. Yes, we know that. Predators are online. Yes, we know that. Double income families are especially worried. One 47-year-old worker in Pohang said, I don't know if I'll be able to keep track of my kids, when they are attend school online, and I wish that they didn't have to do that. So double income means both parents are outside of the home working. And Pohang is a nice city on the coastal city in Korea. All right, so anyway, let me give my thoughts on this. So my thoughts on online education and how it may increase screen addiction. A smartphone or notebook may be used to condition children at a young age as a society necessity. It may drastically increase eye to screen time, isolation, and non-movement. So non-movement can make you fatter because you're not getting your exercise. Isolation can make you not go out and make friends, and increased screen time. I have known a few people who already had smartphones or whatnot, and they were little kids, and they went to the doctor and they said, now your son has an eye stigma, so their eye, I guess, moves a little bit. So it can do that, and people generally hold a smartphone closer to their face than a TV, and a laptop, so keep that in mind. It has the potential to be used to gather data from children and also be hacked. Every system in America has been hacked, so people are going to steal your children's data. And hey, why don't we just make credit card information off your child's data and whatnot? It can be used for social and behavioral conditioning, and it can always give you service announcements, or in this case, like right now across America, phone apps are being used to track your heat, to track everywhere you go. So do you want the government or a hacker to know every place your child goes? So this can be very scary. It is a reality or necessity, or are you just justifying buying one? Many people will say, yeah, I just went out and bought the new iPhone. Oh, I need it for this app, and this app. Are you doing that to justify yourself, or do you really need it? You just don't want to do the extra steps that you could do to do it offline, like, lock your own doors versus flip a switch. So let me know your comments below to this article. I'd be very interested. Okay. Moving on to our second story of the day, and this one still took place in Korea. Lockdown lifestyle can lead to overeating. The couch potato lifestyle forced on many Koreans in a time of the lockdown is causing them to eat more, exercise less, and put on weight. In a survey on March 30th by SMCNC, 4,010 people between 20 to 50, 43% of the respondents said they gained weight over the last 2 months, while 39% said their weight remained unchanged, while only 18% said they lost weight. More women, 47%, than men, 36%, said they gained weight. 51% of the women in their 40s said they gained weight, while men in their 20s were the largest group who said they lost weight, with 26%. The biggest reason seems to be fewer outdoor activities. Most respondents said their level of activities has dropped significantly as they stay at home, even at the weekends. 46%. Watch TV a lot instead of going out. 40%. Or work from home. 20%. Other reasons were less exercise and overeating. And I also want to point out, when you do, on my opinion, before I actually get into my full review, that if you stay indoors, you don't get your vitamin D from the sun, and you're not moving, so your metabolism goes down drastically. So those are two reasons, but I want to comment on this article specifically, so hold on. Okay, my thoughts on the lockdown and overeating. First off, it said 1 to 2 months ago. Okay, so let's assume that was written in March. So 2 months ago is January in Korea. In January and February in Korea is when it is snowing, like all over. So even somebody who has lived there Most people stay indoors that time anyway. There's no people on the streets. So their lifestyle in that regard did not change. They stayed indoors regardless if there's a lockdown or not because of the weather. Okay, so I do not believe the report. While it might be true for people outside, like in America or where else, it's not true for Korea. That's an excuse. Now, for you, do you eat more when you are alone or bored? When you do eat, is it more of the foods you enjoy, like junk food and fast foods, or healthy foods? And are you a mover when you're alone, or are you a couch potato? Please leave your thoughts below. I'd be interested in hearing. Okay, moving on to our next topic of the day. And this one still takes place in Korea, but this can affect every country worldwide as this revolves around the whole tourism industry. Okay, so Korea to end visa-free entry from nations banning Koreans. Korea will ban the visa-free entry for visitors from countries that have banned Koreans during the virus epidemic. In a meeting on Wednesday, the Prime Minister said we're suspending visa waivers from travelers from countries that are banning Koreans and also restricting non-essential foreign visitors. The decision was welcomed by many as overdue, even though it looks motivated by the patriotic peeve rather than epidemiological reasoning. Bach, in late February, President Moon Jae-hee said that it was meaningless to shut doors for foreigners now that the virus has already spread far and wide. Korea has a visa waiver agreement with 69 countries and grants visa entry to visitors from another 47. But picking only on those that ban Korea means some others where the virus is rampant are slipping through the net. Americans and Chinese take up the largest portion of the foreigners arriving recently, but neither are included in the ban. The U.S. suspended interviews for long-stay visas last month, but has not banned Korean tourists or those who already have valid visas. The U.S. has the highest number of infections in the world with 390,000, but arrivals from America will still be admitted here. Yes, they will, but you will be charged $82 a night for 14-day quarantine. Keep that in mind. China is not on the list of visa waiver countries in the first place. On March 28th, China banned all foreigners, including Korea. So there's karma there for you. Korea is very reliant on China. They have this island called Jeju that when Chinese stopped visiting Jeju over a THAAD, THAAD missile thing, the island practically went bankrupt, and even the mainland of Korea took a severe shopping decline. But anyway, I want to give my comments about visas and tourism just a second, so stay with me. So, talking about the end of visa-free traveler status, when I was a kid, and if I wanted to go to Europe, my parents said, okay, you have to write the Germany consulate or the France consulate. You guys send in photo pictures. You have to send in a health check. That's within 6 months, and do all this stuff. So it was a headache, and I never had the desire to leave America because of that. I was like, no, too big of a headache. So the nice thing about modernization in the internet is the e-visa is a big perk. All right. So, because they can do it all online, you get people from other countries do it for you. They can get it done faster instead of weeks or months. But now the virus has caused a problem. So here's my question for you. Do you know what paperwork is required to get a visa by an embassy? You need bank records. You need to show you have so much money in the bank so you won't be on the welfare system in case something bad happens. You have to have a health check usually, and that means you have to show that you have no big disease that, like this case, a virus that can spread. You have to have sometimes a criminal background checks, so that you're not a criminal. Okay, I'm going to give a classic example. Like when I was teaching in Korea, I wanted to send my girlfriend just there, but they're like, they go like, no, sorry, she has to have so much money in her bank, otherwise she only can come as a tour group, and therefore she couldn't be with you. So, it was very frustrating in that regard. Okay, so now how would this affect the travel industry if more countries do this and they do it for a prolonged period of time? Let's just say, like yesterday, we talked about Bali, Indonesia, how they're so reliant on tourism. Let's say for 2 years they stop e-visas. The country's gone. They have nothing they have nothing. So just think of countries or places that are so dependent on tourism, and all the hotel workers, all the restaurants, all the bus drivers, all the tour guides. Where will they go? That's why I like, if more countries do this, so many people are going to be unemployed that the government's not going to know what to do with it. Okay? And Korea, though, does have a loophole, because in Korea, you can go to this island, Jeju, and then from Jeju, because they're open to like any tourist, you can just fly right into Jeju. But Jeju is special because once you're on Jeju, you can just buy a ticket to go to the Korean mainland, and they're like, okay, we welcome you. So that's a little loophole. There might be others out there for other countries, but I wanted to bring that up. And here's another issue. When you are traveling and you get your paperwork, right now, many countries have a 14-day quarantine before they let you actually leave the airport. So, like in Korea's case, it's $82 a night. Can you imagine telling your employer, oh yes, I'm taking a week off, I'm going to Japan or Korea, and they go, oh, okay, we're going to lock you up for 14 days. That's not going to happen. And even if these e-visas go away, I want you to think about this. I'm from California, and we have elementary, middle school, high schools. When I was a kid, when you registered for school, you had to have antibiotics or immune shots. But California years ago passed that was unconstitutional. So some kids will go to school sick, and then they actually pass some fatal diseases around. Past few years, they've even made big newspapers because these sick kids were going to school and infecting everybody else, but schools couldn't do anything because it was constitutionally okay. So keeping that in mind, if places like that do that, how could you reopen the e-visas to everybody without even a health check if there's people that can slip through the cracks like that? So anyway, please leave your comments below what the visa process is to get into your country or for a place you want to go, or what you think about the e-visas staying or ending. Let me know. I'm very interested. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next story of the day. This one takes place in North Korea. I know many of you worldwide are out of a job, but guess what? North Korea is hiring hostesses for tourism. So let's read the article and you can give your thoughts. North Korea is recruiting large numbers of women to look after foreign visitors as the isolating regime focuses on building up its tourism industry. A source on Tuesday said the Workers' Party Politburo has set up a new department and is recruiting women as tour guides during the day and hostesses at night. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Looks like you don't qualify. Women who are recruited to entertain high-ranking officials are chosen based on their loyalty to the party. But the new hostesses will be chosen based off their looks and vigorous personality. Politburo members will choose the finalists based on their physical exams and interviews, the source said. 100 have already been chosen and are undergoing training. They will work in hotels and bars to cater to foreigners as soon as the virus pandemic eases. There are rumors that they will charge $100 an hour for their companionship, 70% of which will be compensated by the party. Rumors say that the woman will earn a lot of money So there's been a lot of applicants. Many women who'd worked in restaurants abroad are returning to North Korea to apply. Keep that in mind. One former senior North Korean officer said North Korea authorities are in desperate need of money due to the international sanctions. So they're even preparing to offer kaisei tourism packages, referring to entertainers similar to the Japanese geisha. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Tourism is particularly the sole source of hard currency for the North under international sanctions. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un's personally pushing fabric for construction in the XYZ province, tourist zones. All right, so stay tuned for my thoughts on this article. So here are my thoughts on the North Korea recruits hostesses for tourists. Okay, first off, ever since 2008, maybe a little before, North and South Korea had this place where the North Koreans would work in factories produced by South Koreans for cheap labor called the Kansang Industrial Region. And this worked for a while, but then Kim Jong-il, he closed it toward the end of his life, and then eventually it reopened, but then permanently shut down. But while this happened, the North Koreans, they stole all the equipment, so basically it was useless when it reopened anyway. Then later you could get a tourist visa, and you could go through China to North Korea. A few people actually did this, and they had this cruise boat. Not that it necessarily would take you on a cruise, but it would sit on one of their rivers, and you basically would sleep in there because there was no real hotel that had high enough standards, like running hot water or whatever. So they put these people on the cruise boat, and that's kind of the one that's in the picture. That's been around for quite a few years. Semi-successful. I've read a few articles on it. But would you feel safe on that prison, or would you feel like you were in prison? Okay, moving on. We also know that even when you are there, you could just do, I don't know, anything. Then you can go to jail, be in prison, or whatever. This American named Ottawa, remember? He basically tore down a photo of Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong's son, and they threw him in jail. That is breaking the law, but that's another thing when you travel. You should know the laws of the country before you go. But in his case, it became very severe, and eventually he died. Okay, so if that's the way they treat their tourists or whatnot, would you trust your safety there? What reassurances would you even have? So I don't know. Now, pay for companionship. Do you pay for companionship? Uh, I've never done it, but many people say it's better than hanging out with a fake friend or people that like you only because you buy them drinks or whatever. So maybe it's better to just pay somebody up front, know what you're getting. I don't know, but what I do know is South Koreans for years have been buying mail order brides. And when I first started in 2007, they were buying many Filipinos. Eventually, the Vietnamese brides took over, and I'll talk more about that in a different video when the topic ever comes up. That's quite interesting. But more recently, too, there's many South Koreans who want to still keep their Korean heritage, so they're actually buying North Korean girls and trying to bring them over. And so that's interesting. Now, we mentioned the Japanese geisha. Now, this is their word for comfort or concubine. And basically, hey, you pay for happy time. So that's what Kim Jong-un is trying to say. You give us $100 and you'll have a good time. And do you think people will return for work? I don't think they'll return for work. Usually most people want their freedom. I think this is kind of propaganda on his part. But I will say most people love their country no matter where they're from. I remember one time I was in Bali and I went out to this island called Lumpur, And it was like only two families on this whole island, and it was like just dirt. And this little kid is running naked, and he just told me, I go, don't you want to at least be on the mainland? You know, we have this, this, this. And he's like, but this is my home. It is all I know. And it is true, not just from him, but you know, because that's just made me freeze. I thought, gosh, I'm used to all this high tech and everything, but this kid is just used to a total simple life. But the more I travel, you know, most people, they love their country. It doesn't matter if they're Chinese, they're North Korean, whatever, their condition or just the patriotic, they have it. So you can't really change that in most people. You shouldn't. The last thing I want to mention off, would you apply for work? Hey, 16 million of you, according to the newspaper today, are out of work. Would you apply for a job? He will be your employer. Yes, no, leave your comments below. I'd love to hear. Okay, moving on to a more positive note for the day, for our next article, is in Vietnam. It's about a rare primate return to nature in Tuong province. And here he is. It's going to be a kind of monkey. Okay. A rare primate was released in Pyeong Bong Natural Reserve in Nong Kea Commune in Hanong District in the northern mountainous province of Tuong Quang today. The Indonesius Rhinus marcus, also known as the golden monkey, which means it's a lucky monkey, is an endangered and rare species listed in the Vietnam's Red Book. Red Book is endangered animals. If you have them, you go to jail. The monkey and 12 wild bamboo rats were found and seized in the household of Toan Von Dong, residing in Ban Thok Hamlet, Yi Ho Commune in Hanong District. District police made a record of Ding's violation of the law for processing the wild animal. The wild animal would survive in nature because they were released back into the forest in a very healthy condition, given that they were captured not too long ago, according to the local authorities. In Binh Hong province, 25 wild and rare animals have been released back into the national park this year. Before returning to the nature, the animals were nourished and treated to recover their wild instincts after being domesticated in household farms. The park's Wild Animal Rescue Center continues to monitor the health and adaptability to the natural environment of the animals. In 2016, the Wild Animal Rescue Center has rescued 104 wild animals and released 85 of them. Nice, good work. The rest are being cared for and rehabilitated at the center. Most of the wild animals were handed over by the local people and forest rangers. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, but I want you to know what household pets do you have in your country that are kind of rare or unique? You know, like in America, we might have a cat and dog, but I'm guessing a kangaroo could be a household pet in Australia, or a goat somewhere in Europe. And furthermore, what do you think about people that have endangered animals as pets? Is that okay or not? Personally, I don't know. I mean, I prefer not, but at the same token, what if there's a wildfire or what if there's high levels of poaching going on in your country? Then it might be better off somewhere else. So anyway, leave your comments below. I'd love to hear. Moving on to our next article of the day. This one takes place in Myanmar, and this was one of the most disturbing articles I read today. Myanmar citizens face bug prosecutions after breaching the rules. As you know, most places have self-distancing and curfew rules. So this is a semi-long article, but I wanted to kind of read it, then go over a few thoughts at the end. So just bear with me, all right? Okay. To combat the COVID-19, Myanmar authorities say they will take zero-tolerance approach for anyone breaching social distancing rules. Action has already been taken against several people and businesses under the Prevention and Control Committee, Disease Law, and Natural Disaster Management Law. Other actions have been taken against people who failed to following the instructions of the health teams. Returning migrants in Aningwe and Singing regions have also faced actions for refusing to stay in their quarantine centers. Yeah, last week somebody broke out. A returnee who fled the quarantine in Lanton Township in Adderway region was sentenced to 3 months with hard labor. Does anybody know what hard labor is? In America, we don't have that, so I don't know. Under the communicable disease law. Another returnee in Sangson region, Powell Township, was jailed for 6 months under the law. A couple from Monkey region were charged with refusing to allow a health team to check their temperature for trying to assault and abuse the staff. You know, here where I am staying, yes, I'm not really under lockdown. We can go out and whatnot. But when you do go to the store, they take a temperature and they make you wash your hands with spray. So I don't know, these people, in this case, you should just, darn it, it's kind of normal. Okay. A mandatory a motorway bus company, Patois, has been banned from allowing too many passengers on a coach, violating the regional social distancing order. So basically, public transit, you know, people are sitting next to each other, that's against the law, but he wants his money. So the way some countries have dealt with this is they said, all right, when you buy one seat, you're technically buying 3 because you have one on each side of you that's empty. Okay, so but evidently this company did not do that, or this whole country doesn't follow that kind of rule yet. All right, so the regional government said on March 29th that buses must be no more than half full, but the operators could double the charge to cover the cost. So see, in this case, that bus made a mistake. But this also brings us back to yesterday. Remember how the subways and things in Singapore were being half staffed, so they should charge more, but that might make people go crazy because they can't afford it. But the bus company reportedly allowed passengers to fill the seats and stand in the aisles while also doubling fees. Well, hey, profits before safety. You can't feel guilty for them. In the Bagan region's Goming Township, police are looking for murder suspects, including a guest house owner who was allegedly involved in an attack against the family of a 100,000 administrator. The attack followed an argument about a guest who was suspected of having COVID-19. On Saturday, the administrator argued that the guest house owner after he led a committee elders to inspect a guest house in the ward after returning reports that a guest was sick and coughing. The following day, the guest house owner led approximately 20 sword-wielding people into the administrator's house. 2 of the administrator's relatives were seriously injured and another was killed, although the administrator and his immediate family escaped. So these people were going around with swords. I mean, where do they get 20 swords anyway? That's why this article was appealing to me. Okay. A man from the Bongi Township has been charged with spreading fake news. Okay, so yes, we read articles about this, Facebook, Twitter, and whatnot. People were saying stuff. Don't do that. They charge big fines or put you in jail. The man protested in Barongong is a positive. Yesterday at a Facebook group. A township administrator filed a lawsuit against the man under the communicable disease law. Now here's the interesting one. A bridegroom who held a wedding reception in Tamu, Saigon region was sentenced to 6 months in prison and fined 1 million cap, $700 last Friday for failing to avoid drawing crowds. Basically, he had a wedding and everybody came to say congratulations, and he broke the social distancing law, so there you go. Now he's in jail while his bride's at home, probably getting a new husband. So that's very sad. On Wednesday, and by the way, in Vietnam, they postponed all weddings and funerals. I have a video on that, so you should check that out. I posted that one yesterday. On Wednesday, the police in Yaop Township, Saigon regime, told the media that the township court sentenced a man to 6 months in prison for fleeing a hospital. The suspected COVID-19 patient, who had been isolated at the hospital, fled after testing negative, but while he was still required to stay quarantined. Yeah, well, that's normal. A lot of places should. So he acted irrational. Underway Region and Township filed a lawsuit against the bridegroom and his father-in-law after another wedding reception. Administrators had asked the bridegroom, 23, and his father-in-law to cancel the reception in the Thangwon village. The two men face up to a year in prison under the National Disaster Management Law. So what do you think about these draconian enforcement laws? I mean, are they just? Are they on the crazy side? I don't know. So please let me know your thoughts below. Are any of these kind of things happening in your country? Stay tuned for our next story. Moving on to our next article of the day. It's kind of like a double hitter. First, I want to point off, as many of you may or may not know, this week China sunk a Vietnamese boat in disputed waters that Vietnamese claims is theirs, and they are. Okay, but the very next day, the Philippines claimed that they backed and supported the Vietnam's respect and actions. So that was yesterday. Now let's move on to today, so they said Vietnam and Philippines together, and China themselves have been battling many Asian countries for the whole ocean, including the Philippines and Vietnam. So this is the part I want to read, then I'll get into it. China has deployed a patrol vessel from its coastal guards to the Sachan Shoal, is the latest salve in the sustained presence campaign against the Philippines' claims the futures of the disputed South China Sea, the ship tracking data showed. The China Coast Guard ship, as a 3302, was at Shengcheng on Wednesday, and it left for the port and the province on China on Sunday. Its deployment means that the CCG ship are currently patrolled nearly all for the hot spots disputed between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea. This happened at a time of renewed diplomatic tension after Manila issued a statement Wednesday directly criticizing China over the sinking of the Vietnamese vessel. Okay, now I'm going to go over my thoughts on this whole incident and give you a little bit of history, so stay with me. So now let's hear my thoughts on a little backstory on what happened. As we heard, Vietnam's boat was sunk by the Chinese over some territory, and then that was yesterday. And today, the Chinese went with disputed water of the Philippines. So let's take a look back upon a few years ago. Words matter, sometimes have consequences. In 2008 to 2012, and partly ongoing, Vietnam sold land to Chinese for development. Some of the land was local farmland owned by local Vietnamese. Examples of this would be in the Da Lat region. I became aware of this with some of my friends when I first started teaching English and then learning Vietnamese. So moving on. In 2013 to 14, China attacked and sunk many Vietnamese ships over the same islands that were disputed this week. The Vietnamese also protested that year about China buying a port, or leasing it in this case. The Vietnamese government backed off of the China's offer due to this protest. By the way, when I was in Da Lat, I saw people protesting over their taken land. So again, it was real. While Vietnam stopped the de-escalation of both incidents, in Da Lat and the boat sinking, they did little to prevent it from happening again. In 2020, Vietnam ships are sunk again, but China fears no backlash from Vietnam. The pen and sword both need to be used better. So. All right, now let's move on to the Philippines, though. A little history about the Philippines. The country was and is poor. The Philippines and the U.S. have been strong allies, but this changed in 2016. In 2016, the president of the Philippines distanced himself from the U.S. and ran toward China. China offered a lot of money and investments for their One Belt, One Road thing that they're trying to do all over Asia. The president accepted the Chinese ships and territorial claims at the time over their islands for the China cash. Okay, so now we're 4 years later. Now, in 2020, while he still loves the cash, he is semi-neutered in his thoughts or actions, as he was reminded in this article. So yeah, his government made that claim that, hey, we'll stand by Vietnam, and then China's like, well, hey, you owe us money, investments, and everything else. So anyway, maybe you have more background on the information than me, or maybe you have different thoughts on either side of the issue. Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear from you. Moving on to our last article of the day, and this is definitely the saddest article of the day. This was in a Taiwan newspaper. Vietnam lost a son today. And I don't even think they made it in Vietnam newspapers. A Vietnamese migrant worker was found dead at a Chari garment factory. The body of a migrant worker from Vietnam was found at a garment factory in Chari County, the local law enforcement said Thursday. According to the police, the worker's body was discovered when a cloth rolling machine at the factory malfunctioned Wednesday night. Although the man was pulled from the machine by other factory workers and rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead as a result of a traumatic shock Thursday morning. The police said that the man suffered a severe concussion and crushed injuries on his body and face. Despite there having been a surveillance camera near the machine, it failed to capture the footage of what happened. The police said inspectors were sent to investigate the case Thursday morning after receiving a report from the plant management the previous night, the county labor department said. The county authorities have contacted the Vietnamese man's labor broker in Taiwan in a bid to help the family come to the country to deal with the related funeral matters as soon as possible, as well as help them apply for condolence money from the Ministry of Labor, the county social affairs department said. However, the county head professor Tasha Yan said that the man's broker in Vietnam has been out of touch due to the outbreak of the virus. And so I'm going to stop there because I want to bring up my thoughts on this. So stay with me. Here are my thoughts about the Vietnam loses a son. Stay in touch and then navigate the system. Okay, communicate back home often. Many times we are workers overseas, whether we're teaching or whatever we're doing, studying, we're a student at an international university. We don't talk to our parents. So something could go wrong if you don't talk to them if you only talk to them once a week or once a month, then if something happens to you in between there, it might be days, weeks, or months before anybody even knows where you are, what happened. So keeping somebody updated all the time is on a regular schedule is good. Now know your embassies, governments, and departments and laws. Okay, so in this example, we saw that the government could not even get hold of the recruiter. The recruiter could be a shady guy for all we know. First off, remember a few days ago, recruiters have their best interest at heart, not yours. So this poor family, this article stood out to me today because the poor family probably doesn't even know their son is dead because the recruiter has the contact information or knows how to get a hold of this family, but authorities don't. So tomorrow is Easter, and this family most likely does not know anything about their son. Okay. Now the government department and law. So even when you do get that information, like I said, that they're entitled to compensation and stuff. So when you are the worker, you should navigate that information and you should send it back to the people in your home country, not so that they at least know how to get things started. I myself have traveled around the world and I've always had issues. Like one time I was in Taiwan and I had a Korea credit card, and I still do, and and they were very high tech for security, and I entered the password 3 times wrong. So they locked all my credit cards out. So I actually had to go to the Korean embassy. They call it a consul because it's really small. And they shipped a new credit card for me to the consul, and I signed and I picked it up so I could actually have my finances again. So I knew my way around the system, even though I was in a foreign country. So you should know how to do that. And then, now this one interested me too. Factory safety laws. I mean, Taiwan is always preaching being safe. Well, Taiwan is Foxconn. We know Foxconn had installed nets because girls, our coworkers, were jumping out of the building, just killing themselves. In this case, why was that camera broken? Probably because there was something they didn't want you to see. That, just like if you remember in the U.S., they had that very famous guy die, and they said, oh, all the cameras were broken and all the guards were gone. No, so I actually think maybe this was a disobedient employee and they made something happen, sadly. So maybe things will get fixed for the factory. Maybe better factory laws will come into play for this. And my last part is, what actions do you do to stay safe and in touch with your family back home? Do you have an emergency backup plan? If you do, I would love to hear about it. Please leave comments and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow. And have a happy Easter. Well, that will conclude Loyal World News. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Feel free to like, subscribe, or drop a comment below. If you're on the go, listen to my podcast with the link provided in the description. I will see you tomorrow to share more world news.